this was the most disastrous, unluckiest, eventful
engine down, no power.
Race weekend, and a couple of weeks before that, of my entire life. And at the same time, it showed what unbreakable team spirit, teamwork, and camaraderie can basically make impossible possible. Many of you have followed the events of the 12 hours race of Nürburgring live during the live stream and on social media, but today I want to show you some of the details that we were not able to show to you, how crazy it was. Again, thank the teams for their incredible work and show you some of the things that will make you believe the story even less if you would have to believe it from just hearing without seeing it. So let's kick off our 12 hours of Nürburgring, and actually we have to start first with the RCN race that happened before that I raced together with Jimmy and haven't published at this certain point yet. It was supposed to be an easy rollout, but the highlight or the downfall of this whole thing is actually me not causing a crash, but resulting in a crash. So what happened, you can see here, is I was approaching and to overtake another car where it started moving to the right, and I tried to still go for the pass, and in my misjudgment I ended up too much on the grass. I did not signal him that I was overtaking, so you can say, hey, he was supposed to be looking on his mirrors. Partially true, but at the end I still had a lot of time to put on the brakes or signal, or not to make the assumption of that everything could go well. Unfortunately, it didn't go well. I spun out, hit the barrier. Miraculously, this was only like the outside damage to the bumper. I could proceed going back into the pits. Maybe the alignment was put up slightly, but Jimmy still could continue the race, finish the race, although we were not participating for the actual result. But still, the damage was there. The Black Falcon guys did a tremendous job of rebuilding the car in the next couple of days to get it done for Fridays for the actual 12-hour race, which was for us the highlight of this year, so to say, the main event. So fast forward to Friday, the car was ready, and it was supposed to be a fantastic day, and overall it was a fantastic day. I mean, we arrived in the paddock, we went to the Black Falcon lounge, we did the registration, amazing catering. If you are not only into cars, Black Falcon is the place to be for food alone as well. We did our clothes checks with the scrutineering, so showed our helmets, our suits, fantastic Bilstein suits by the way, and also all the underwear, of course, to make sure that everything is fireproof, everything is within the regulations. We had a scrutineering of the car. We did some practice laps because it was free practice, so we had some session in the morning, a small one, and then we had another one in the afternoon. And later the track was used by Red Bull because Red Bull was here with Formula 1 and also a couple of other cars. They had the Super Transit van of Ford. They had drift cars, they had the NASCAR cars, all kinds of different cars. We're using the evening session to do some practice to make sure that the following day they could have an optimal run. We had also a great media event. We did some pictures and videos with the car for the future promotional reasons. And you could see that we were like very hyped, we were very excited because this was supposed to be like a very great event. Finally, we had also the drivers briefing. We had two of them, one internally for the team where all of the managers and engineers and also the team owner, we sat down together with Jimmy and Steve to talk about our strategy. And the strategy was actually quite simple. To be honest, when we said like, okay, who's going to be the start? Are we going to check if someone in the qualifying is going to be faster and then pick on that? And the answer was very simple. Guys, we're not going to go for a result here. It's important just to finish because let's be honest, the guys who are driving in the front, they have been driving these cars for 10, 15, some of them maybe even 20 years. Wait, 330 hasn't been around, but before that you had the V4, the E90 car, before that you had even like E46 or even E36, and at the end of the day it's the same type of car, it's a production spec car, and those guys are like who are driving up front. They're factory drivers, they've been driving for over a decade, they have so much experience that maybe in 10 years we will have similar type of experience as them. So for now it was not about the result whatsoever. So they put us back to earth with our crazy ambitions. And that was very good, I think, in a way. And then finally we had the official drivers briefing for all the drivers where they told us about the race, the track layout, the very important rules when it comes to overtaking and being overtaken, since it's a multi-class race with also GT3 drivers, also the slower cars at the same time, which makes this race unique. And the following day, well, that was the time to kick off the main things. Saturday, 8 o'clock, I got there even before. I was supposed to be in the car by 7:50, so I could be on the track by 8 o'clock when the pit light would be turned green. I was instructed by the mechanics to do bedding in the brakes, because we had the brand new brakes for the race, and also like watch out for the tires because they were also brand new. We didn't use tire heaters for that particular session. Got on, did some bedding in, there was no problem whatsoever. And then they said, okay, you can now push, everything is up to temperature, you can do 2 push laps, then you come in, then Jimmy and Steve gonna go in, and that's kinda it. On the second lap, many of you have seen the disaster happen on the live stream. So at this point of recording this particular video, I don't know if we can include the footage because NLS is quite strict when it comes to showing the crash footage. So maybe we will not get permission, but at the same time, the footage is out there because live stream is still there. So check out the link in the video description where you can see what has happened, and also me losing it and the whole impact and the whole shebang for people who want to see all the drama around it, etc. Now, what did happen from my perspective? So the car, the back end just went instantly, and you could see that my steering input was completely minimal, so there was like no time to correct. How violent it went, it's crazy. Why can the back end step out? It could be called tires, but I don't think so, because previous corners before there were higher G-force corners, so the tires were definitely suited up to take that corner in particular. I hate to say it because it sounds like a broken record, but the corner after, there was a massive oil spill from Schwedenkreuz up until beyond Adenauerforst, so like over 1 kilometer spill, and 2 cars crashed there as well. Many of them lost control, and it could be possible that I hit like a tiny bit of oil spill. I don't know, I don't care. The video's out there, you can make your own judgment what has happened. The long story short is I got out of the car as soon as possible. At that point I thought, well, there we go again, the race is over. Everyone thought that it was also quite bad. It took quite some time for us to get back. I also forgot my gloves at the Marshall post, by the way, because of all the shebang. We had to make a stop at Brünchen to pick up a third car because, like I said, there were so many crashes. We were picking those cars up, and then eventually we got off at Breitscheid. Sorry, we first got off at Breitscheid. We went on a public road, and then race control instructed us, turn around, go back, because you will not make it back in time, because there's already massive traffic jam on public roads from all the people that are coming to the Formula 1 event. So by now it was already like almost an hour after the impact happened, and I was still sitting in recovery truck. I didn't have contact to the team to say what has happened. Eventually, after more than an hour, we made it back by going through all the detours, through T13, through public road, and then finally to getting back into the pits. The first thing, of course, what I did is to hug Maggie to say that I'm okay, everything is fine. I spoke to the team, I said, guys, I'm sorry. Honestly, at this point, I don't know what happened. I believe it's not my fault, but we need to see the video analysis. Our video system didn't record because the last 3 minutes after the impact, we did the emergency shutdown, and the last 3 videos are not recording, but we have the live stream anyway, and everyone can make the judgment. After the quick assessment by the Black Falcon team, massive, I cannot, like, this whole video should be just like an absolute praise to them. They said, well, we have good news, is that there is no structural damage in terms of the chassis, or the pickup points of suspension are not dent or bent. It's only the bumpers, it's only some trailing arms, tow rods, it's only a couple of things that can be easily replaced. But here comes the problem. It's a production spec car. These parts you would just get from the dealer, but to get lots of parts instantly, it's quite impossible. Lots of competitive teams stepped up and they said, like, hey, if you can get those parts from the dealer in wherever, in Aachen, in Mayen, the nearby cities, we can give you our parts as long as we can get those parts before the start of the race, because you understand, we're not going to risk the fact that we need those parts and then we end up without them. So that agreement has been made. Black Falcon team were calling every single dealer like, hey, we need the bumper, we need the headlight, we need this, we need that, we need that. And then as all of this is happening, we're trying to rebuild the car, find the parts, we had to go to the autograph signing session where all the drivers are invited to meet the fans, sign the autographs. We had that, which was fantastic, amazing. We've met so many different fans who were there either for Jimmy, for Steve, for me, or for all three of us, gave us encouraging words, even seeing the accident. Sometimes I seemed like very busy on my phone because I had to manage the situation, seeing what was happening, up to date with the parts recovery, etc, etc. So apologize if I looked a bit uninterested in this, but I was just like trying to manage everything at the same time. It was crazy. And then once the session was over, we said that decision has been made to grab another car of Bilstein, their company car, their normal 320 or 330, at the end of the day it's the same engine, to grab this and use that as a donor car. Now at this point I want to say a massive thank you to Bilstein for believing in this project still, regardless of everything that has happened before. You can understand, like for them, like, oh, we signed up a YouTuber and 2 sim racers and then this stuff happens. And then like, you know what, we're still gonna give you even like our company car to make this work. They even put a sticker on something about watch me become a race car in Pitbox 4. It was amazing. But we had also another meet and greet that we organized at the Bilstein booth at the Nürburgring Boulevard. So I could not witness this whole reconstruction. When the car was crashed and we had the first damage assessment, the response from Black Falcon was, damage is not that bad, we definitely are going to race tomorrow. Today we will see if we're going to get all the parts. Then once it became clear that we're probably going to get the parts, I said we're probably going to race today. And then once the car, the donor car arrived from Bilstein, they said we're definitely going to race today. And as we were doing our meet and greet, I got a message from Black Falcon in our team chat saying like, get ready for the start, please come back because the car is finished. And we like exploded from happiness, like, oh my God, we cannot believe that this is actually going to happen. So we came back, Jimmy was getting ready to do the start as we initially planned. As he was getting in the car was still being wrapped on the front to make sure that it would look somewhat the same. We went onto the grid, the fans cheered and celebrated because also they could not believe how quick Black Falcon made this turnaround. They literally rebuilt like almost totaled car. Luckily it looked significantly worse than it actually was, but they made the impossible happen. I owe these guys, I don't know, like not only just beers, but dinners and probably like forever tiramisu for the rest of their lives. Simply unbelievable feat. So, Jimmy went into the grid. The start was then gonna happen. Since we didn't qualify for obvious reasons, we had to start at the complete back of our group. And the first couple of minutes, or the first probably 2 minutes, Jimmy was making already very good progress until 2 cars next to him collided and the other car went into his side. And we're like, oh my God, no, this cannot be true. He came back into the pits and miraculously the car only destroyed both of the doors and probably also the B pillar. Miraculously it did not touch the wheels, or at least not to the extent that the suspension was bent, because he could continue on. Jimmy door bent could continue with just the door bent and not suspension bent. Okay, all the jokes aside, this was miraculously. Another thing that did happen with the impact, unfortunately, is that the mirror fell off. Now, with having multi-class racing, this is quite tricky with having GT3s coming up behind you with double, triple the speed that you're doing, appearing out of nowhere, and you need to watch them just in your side mirrors, and your main mirror, you cannot see them if they're going from left to right. It's a very important factor that was even more important later in the race. Still, Jimmy managed to do great stint, double stint. Then Steve did another great double stint. You can find out more on their channels. So if you haven't yet subscribed to their channels to find out how the race, the weekend went from their perspective and how they did in the race, but they did miraculous times. They were roughly, I think, like 15 seconds off the top pace for the very first time. That's an incredible result, and we were actually competing for the top positions. Unfortunately, due to the impact, it was not that great with the extra pit stop. Eventually we're like somewhere P5 out of 12 cars that started, and I think again for the first time was a great result. Then it was time for me to get in the car. Obviously, with everything has happened, with the qualifying crash, the RCN crash before, I had also GR86 crash, you know, it's like there was a lot of pressure on me, and I'm like, okay, I just gonna baby the car and get back, like make sure that we're gonna cross the finish line. was driving my lines, not taking any risks. It was extremely challenging. First of all, the headlights were not working properly because the headlight from the donor car is not the same headlight as the car that we initially had. So at first, the headlight would not even work at all. But during the repairs, a mechanic from Adrenaline Motorsport, another competitor team, they came to us and they actually reprogrammed so the headlights could at least function. But what you see on the onboard, and you could see also from the outside footage, is that one headlight could do the high beams, so I could see up front, but the other one stayed down. And even then, I think the visibility was so poor, it was impossible to see, so I took extra easy to actually drive, just based on the reference points that I know. But the main issue was the lack of mirror, because the only thing I had, everyone is driving with high beams, so you just see the massive constantly light bulbs in your side mirrors, and you don't know if they're next to you, if they're close to you, if they're coming in, if they're going from left or right. They're just there, and you just use the indicator when you're going to indicate where you're going to stay to give them a safe pass, especially when the light is yellow, because that's a GT3 car and not white as all the other cars. Or when you do not indicate, this means you're going to keep your line. So hopefully the driver behind you understands that. Everything went well, it was very stressful, and then the last 20 minutes before the end of the race, I got an impact. A cop car drove into me as I was making a turn into Brunchen. Now, we took this incident to race control because from our perspective, I was not at fault, because you saw me staying on my line, I did not indicate, and I also could not see him because he was in my blind spot, and when I turned in, unfortunately, he went for it. And again, at the same time, miraculously, he only hit the wheel. He did not push me enough off the track, so I didn't hit the grass and the barrier, so it was only that. But when I came in the pits, the mechanic said like, okay, the race is over, the track rod is bent, we cannot fix it in time, or to make the alignment the last 20 minutes of the race, just like done. Let's not go out because there's also too much stress at this point. Now, as mentioned, we took this incident to race control, and then we had to wait very long for it because there was still a award ceremony after like 10 o'clock, 10:30. They had other incidents to analyze. And when they saw my camera perspective and his camera perspective, they say it, okay, you are right, because when we see it from your position, there is nothing that you've done anything wrong. But also from his perspective, it looks like you are going to stay maybe long on the left side, and then you turn in last moment for the corner. And if you would have your inside mirror, you could have probably seen him approach, but at this point he was completely in your blind spot, you couldn't see him approach. It's just a racing incident. And I don't blame anyone, no one is blaming me. It was just unfortunate, but you can understand that at that point, I was just like done, completely broken with everything that happened in the past already over the last couple of days and weeks. It was like, oh my God. So decision was made that I was not gonna do qualifying, because having to wait there until after midnight for race control and being emotionally drained, it was more important that I could get some proper rest, some proper sleep, and that was most important thing. So the following day, Jimmy and Steve would do the qualifying. So fast forward to Sunday, I got my 2 hours of extra sleep. I arrived there when the qualifying was finished, and more issues came apparent with the car. So first of all, gearbox was acting funny. At the end of Steve's stint, he couldn't even put it in neutral. It would not work properly. I mean, right now, shooting this video early in the morning, I'm gonna get a massive sunburn, and during the race weekend, it was also over 30 degrees. So the car was suffering from heat from all the impacts. And speaking of impacts, not only gearbox had issue, the traction control would not switch off. This has probably to do with the fact that either steering positioning sensor was damaged or ABS sensor was damaged. So it was like a great start of the race. Luckily, Black Falcon managed to do like a hard software reset on the car, and everything seemed to work for the actual race, because when Steve did the formation lap, he said, okay, the gearbox is working now properly, because before it would just shift gears randomly by itself, shift down or shift up. It was like not really competitive, I would say, not very favorable. But as he did the formation lap, or let's say like the grid procedure, he said, okay, everything seems to be working. So he did the start and everything was working for him. We started from the back of our class, but we made our way up slowly towards P5. Even after Jimmy was finished, we even were around P3. with all pit stops. We were even P2 at some point, but then of course also the professional drivers came into the cars and they were getting pace on us again. It was time for me to do my double stint, and honestly, you know, again, bringing up the fact that there was so much emotional pressure, I was like feeling really down. I was kind of getting with shaky knees in the car, like, okay, what can possibly go wrong? But still determined, like, okay, no, we're gonna do the best. We're not gonna take any risks. We're gonna just drive our thing. It's going to be fine. Start driving, and the second lap, as I come into, like, I got comfortable with the car, like, okay, the car feels good, it's fine. I get into Flandsgarden, and the car dies. Like, I think coming out of ice curve, the car dies. There is no response on the throttle. It's still running, but like it just like starts losing power, and I absolutely lose it. I start screaming, yelling, "You piece of shit!" You see it yourself. It's like we never had a video like this that we need to bleep out this much of information.
Engine down, no power. For f***'s sake. Unbelievable. I cannot believe this.
I pull over in a safe spot because there was an orange barrier, there was a marshal post, everyone was waving yellow, so it was fine. I do a hard reset, so I switch off the main ignition switch and like the kill switch. I start the car, it seems to be running. Okay, by that point, with rolling slowly and stopping and making sure that everything was okay, we lost already quite some like minutes, probably on pace. I start driving again, traction control would not switch off. The same issue we had in the morning. Now, why is this an issue? Because if you're not really into motorsports or into cars, you might think, well, traction control is great, it gives you traction. No, the only thing it does, it makes sure you will not lose any traction. It does not give you any traction. So in case of racing, the car thinks like, oh, you're gonna lose traction because the production spec car is programmed to have the grip with the street tires. In case of slicks, you have like 10 times more grip than with the stock tire. So it slows you down on acceleration, it slows you down in corners, it goes on the brake. On the bumpy Nordschleife surface, when you go over a bump and the rear wheels lose a bit of grip, it goes on the brakes again for you. And also you have to be very careful as a driver, because sometimes when you go from corners such as like Piff Puff, when you have like sudden chicane from left to right, you lose even more grip for the perception of the car, and it might go full on the brakes in the corner and it will make you understeer into the barrier. So it was completely undrivable. You could even see in the live stream, I watched it back, that there were all the comments like, what the hell is with Misha? He's even significantly slower than he was yesterday, and I was like 20 seconds off pace of Jimmy and Steve. Of course, they're very talented drivers, but usually we're like kind of same pace, and it was because simply all the time that they had won and did great in the stint, it was like constantly loss. On top, the car died one more time afterwards, and you know, at that point I was like already like completely done with it. I'm like, I was ready for the car to die finally, and just like, okay, we're not gonna even finish the race. Miraculously, we did finish the race in P5 out of P8 or 9, because I don't know if one car didn't make the start because it had an incident or a crash, but on the first day I remember there were like I think 12 cars in class, and probably the second day many cars didn't survive. So still we got quite a good result considering everything. But once I got out of the car, I said also on the live stream, for people who have been following, like, I don't know if I need to laugh or cry, but I was so emotionally done. I could not, like, there was no emotion left. And even actually I was just like, you know, I got out of the car trying to take my helmet off, and as I'm like not paying attention, not knowing what's happening, I kicked off end plate of a wing of an M240 Cup car, which belonged to Adrenaline Motorsport, the guys that helped us with the headlights. So I'm like, well, this might as well happen on top, you know, an asteroid might fall out of the sky at this point, I wouldn't be surprised. So put it back on. I later made a post on Instagram saying like, hey guys, can the owner of this car, because at that point I didn't know it was Adrenaline, contact with me because I messed up their car, so I want to pay for it for whatever damage may have cost, but yeah, sorry. Team was celebrating, they couldn't believe the fact that we finished, and in hindsight, after I calmed down, it was like, okay, this is unbelievable achievement. from the team perspective, from all the drivers, from everyone, from all the fans that came to us, gave us encouraging words either in person, during meet and greets, or in our pit boxes, or over DMs. The team that kept on believing in us, like Bilstein themselves giving us a donor car and still keep on going, even though all the odds were against us. Black Falcon did a miraculous job of repairing the car multiple times, and we made the finish line. We made it with a completely destroyed car that was having failures from left to right due to the incidents. We miraculously made it. It was, again, the most unbelievable race weekend, 2 weeks, including all the previous incidents, the hardest pressure we had. But you can see that at the end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, although it was extremely dark, also with not properly working headlights, and there. So I think that's all I have to say. Again, I cannot praise both teams for the incredible job that they've done, and we now have again the courage and motivation to go even faster, even further. We've shown that the pace is there for the initial time with a broken car, so it will be even there for the upcoming times. We're looking forward to be going back for one more time, for one more NLS this year. At this point, we don't know if we're going to be NLS 8 in 2 weeks time, if we will be able to rebuild the car, because we have to cut out the whole side of it to rebuild the whole structure of damage from the impact and the doors. So probably it will be NLS 9 towards the end of the year, and we have some other cool plans planned for that, and then is of course the next year. But this was unbelievable. Let me know, guys, what you think of it. Motorsport is not exciting. Well, this is our own Drive to Survive series, because you cannot make this up. I'm gonna get some more rest, probably sleep for another 2 weeks to catch up on everything, do some data analysis and report back to you. But again, thank you everyone for not only this opportunity, but for all of you guys for the endless support, and on to the next one. Let's have a look at the damage, and let's hope that the next race this shelf will be empty. And one of the most interesting things is this steering rack. This is the old one that has been already taken out of the car. The new one is already in the car, and it has been confirmed, something that we assumed, that it has received quite a beating, because in qualifying on Saturday morning with the crash, then on Saturday night during the race when a cup car bumped into the wheel, and therefore the sensors have been damaged. Also mechanically the steering rack is not straight anymore, and because of that the car thinks that you're turning while you are going straight, so that really upsets the traction control, the steering angle sensor, and lots of other electronic issues. So this coming weekend with the new steering rack, we should not have the driver excuse of traction control anymore. And again, as mentioned, hopefully we will have an incident free. We will not need a new one this coming weekend. Yes, indeed, we will be racing this weekend, because as you can see, we have here a massive pile of new parts already. Black Falcon has done an assessment and they can confirm that they will get the car finished for this weekend. So come visit us on Friday free of charge. Also on Saturday, if you want to watch the race, visit us in Pit Box 4. We have lots of other cool updates, because first of all, we're gonna have a 4th driver, very special guest, driving with us this race. Also, we'll be probably doing some interesting giveaways, because we have lots of broken parts, but parts that you can use, such as wheels and tires mounted together for a nice coffee table. So give Bilstein a follow, give Black Falcon a follow, and all 3 of us, of course, to stay tuned how to win these things if you're interested, and of course of all the latest developments. Let's keep our fingers crossed for a less eventful race this coming weekend. And I think we're all excited. And again, thank you very much for the support from all of you, and also to Black Falcon for putting their effort into this. We're gonna do our best to give them less work after the coming weekend. But for that, stay tuned, and looking forward to sharing our adventure with you guys this weekend. Bonus shot, look at this. The donor car has been already assembled, it's fixed, it's good to go. So one more time, thank you Bilstein for allowing us to do this crazy thing, and now you can use it again in the fleet, and hopefully we don't need it the coming weekend, but in case it's there, but we don't need it.